When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. I remember that moment so clearly.
It was a Tuesday.
The middle of September. The kind of afternoon where the sun is still warm, but you can feel a chill in the air that tells you winter is coming. I was standing in their hallway, holding my little suitcase. The one I'd packed so carefully just 3 days before. My son, Mark, he had called me. His voice sounded light, happy. He said, "Mom, the kids are asking for you. Why don't you come stay for the weekend? Make it a long one. We miss your cooking." Those words, they were like music to my ears. You have to understand, when you're my age, living alone, the silence in the house gets very loud. The phone doesn't ring as much as it used to. So when your son says he misses you, your heart just leaps. It soars. I packed my favorite apron, the blue one with the little flowers. I bought yarn to knit a scarf for my granddaughter, Lily. She's 7. I thought we could sit together, and I could teach her. I imagined the smell of fresh bread filling their beautiful kitchen. I saw myself reading stories to little Tommy before bed. I held that picture in my mind for the whole 3-hour bus ride to the city. I arrived, and Mark hugged me tight. Really tight. He whispered, "Thanks for coming, Mom." He looked tired, but happy to see me. That first evening was perfect. I made spaghetti and meatballs, their father's recipe. The kids laughed. Jenny, my daughter-in-law, she was polite. She said the sauce was good. But then it changed out on Tuesday morning. Mark was at work. The kids were at school. It was just me and Jenny in the kitchen. I was washing the breakfast dishes, humming a little tune, thinking about what to make for dinner. She came in with a cup of coffee.
She didn't sit down.
She just leaned against the counter and looked at me. The silence was different that morning. It wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. Then she said it.
Her voice was very calm.
Very measured. She said, "I think it's time for you to head home now. We need our space back." I didn't turn around right away. I kept my hands in the soapy water. I watched a single bubble float up and pop. I felt my chest get tight. But I knew I could not cry in front of her. I could not let her see that she had cut me with that one little sentence. So I dried my hands on the towel. I turned around, and I smiled. A real smile?
No.
It was a polite smile. A practice smile. The kind of smile you give a neighbor you don't really like when you pass them on the street. I said, "Of course, dear. I understand." And that smile, it hid 1,000 questions. It hid a pain so deep. I felt it in my bones. To understand why those words hurt so much, I need to tell you about our family. About how it used to be. My name is Helen. I'm 68 years old. I live in a small town called Miller's Creek. It's the kind of place where everybody knows everybody, and the biggest event of the year is the fall festival. My house is small. It's the same house where I raised Mark. It's where my husband, Frank, and I spent 42 years together. Frank passed away 5 years ago. It was a heart attack. Sudden. One day he was there, fixing the fence in the backyard. The next day he was gone. People tell you that time heals. And in some ways it does. The sharp, stabbing pain becomes a dull ache. You learn to live with it. But the house still feels empty. Mark is my only child. My miracle baby. I had a hard time getting pregnant, and when he finally came along, I thanked God every single day. He was a sweet boy. Quiet. Sensitive. He used to follow Frank around the yard, trying to hammer nails just like his daddy. He had Frank's eyes. Kind eyes that I poured everything I had into that boy. I wasn't a perfect mother.
Nobody is.
I worried too much. I fussed over him when he had a cold. I probably held on too tight. But I loved him with every piece of my heart. When he did well in school, I felt like I'd won a prize. When he got his heart broken by that girl in high school, I sat on his bed and just rubbed his back for hours. I didn't say much. I just stayed. When he went off to college, the house felt even emptier. Frank and I would sit at the dinner table, just the two of us, and talk about him. "What do you think he's eating?" I'd ask. Frank would laugh and say, "Probably pizza." "He's fine, Helen." Then he met Jenny. He brought her home one Thanksgiving.
She was pretty.
Very put together. She came from a different kind of family, Then us. Her parents were both doctors. They lived in a big house in the suburbs. They had nice cars and took vacations to Europe. Our world was much smaller. But Mark loved her, and that was enough for me. I tried so hard to make her feel welcome. I asked her about her job. She was a marketing manager. A very important job with long hours. I learned to cook dishes she liked, things that were lighter, not so heavy on the gravy. I wanted her to feel like I wasn't just a mother-in-law, but a friend. The wedding was beautiful. Frank was so proud. I remember him walking me to my seat, squeezing my arm. "He's a lucky man," Frank whispered. And he was. Jenny was smart and ambitious. She was going to give him a good life, a modern life. After the wedding, they moved to the city. That's 3 hours away. We didn't see them as often as I'd have liked. Maybe for a long weekend every few months, or for the big holidays. It was okay. It was life. When Frank died, Mark was wonderful. He came home for 2 weeks. He helped me go through Frank's things, which was the hardest thing I've ever done. We cried together. He held my hand at the funeral. For those 2 weeks, it felt like old times. Like my boys were back, but then he had to go home. Back to his job. Back to his life. Back to Jenny. And I was alone again. The silence in the house became my new companion. I'd talk to Frank sometimes. I'd tell him about the birds at the feeder, or that the roses needed pruning. I'd just sit in his old armchair and stare out the window. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months.
Years.
That's why that phone call from Mark meant so much. The one asking me to come for a visit. It was like a lifeline. A rope thrown to me while I was drifting on a quiet, lonely sea. I remember standing at the bus stop, my little suitcase by my side. I felt a flutter of excitement. The scarf I was knitting for Lily was in my bag. I had a new picture book for Tommy. I was going to be needed again. I was going to be grandma. I sat by the window on the bus, watching the familiar landscape change into the busy city. Farms turned into shopping malls. Open fields turned into rows of houses, all packed together. My heart beat a little faster the closer we got. I thought about Mark's voice on the phone. He'd sounded so happy, so eager. I imagined him meeting me at the bus station. I pictured the kids running to give me a hug. I thought about sitting at their big, modern kitchen table, drinking coffee and listening to Mark tell me about his work. It was going to be a good weekend. A wonderful long weekend. I had no idea that by Tuesday, that dream would be over. That first night was everything I hoped for. Mark picked me up from the station. He gave me that tight hug. In the car, he kept glancing over and smiling. "It's so good to see you, Mom," he said. "The kids have been asking about you nonstop." Their house was beautiful. It was in a new development, all glass and white walls. Very clean. Very quiet. Not a thing out of place. Jenny greeted me at the door with a quick kiss on the cheek. "Hi, Helen," she said. "Glad you made it safely." She called me Helen. She always had. At first, I thought it was just modern. But sometimes, I wished she'd call me Mom. Just once, Lily and Tommy were shy for about 2 minutes. Then Lily grabbed my hand and pulled me to see her room. She showed me all her toys, her new school backpack. The picture she'd drawn of a cat. Tommy, he's only 4, just wanted to be picked up. He laid his head on my shoulder, and I felt that little body relax against me. Oh, that feeling. There's nothing like holding a sleeping grandchild. It's like holding a piece of your own heart, beating outside your chest. I made dinner that night. I'd brought some of my own spices from home. I made a big pot of sauce, let it simmer for hours the way Frank's mother taught me. The house, which had been so sterile and quiet, started to smell like a home, like garlic and onions and love. Jenny came into the kitchen while I was cooking. She watched me for a while. "You're making a mess, Helen," she said. It wasn't mean, just a statement. She pointed to the flour on the counter, the pile of onion skins. I laughed a little and said, "That's the secret, dear. A happy mess makes a happy meal." She just smiled a small, tight smile and walked away. Dinner was lovely. The kids ate well. Mark had seconds. He leaned back in his chair and sighed. "Mom, I forgot how good real food tastes." Jenny glanced at him. "Hey, I cook," she said. It was a joke, but there was a tiny edge to it. Mark quickly added, "Of course you do, honey. This is just different."
Different.
That was the right word. Everything was different. The first sign of trouble came on Sunday morning. I was in the kitchen early, making pancakes from scratch. The kids loved them. I heard Jenny come down the stairs. She was in her bathrobe, holding her phone. She stopped at the kitchen entrance and looked at the bowl I was mixing. "Oh," she said. "I was just going to get them some cereal." "Nonsense," I said, smiling. "It's the weekend. Pancakes are a weekend treat." She poured herself a coffee and stood there, watching me. She wasn't helping. She was just watching. "The recipe calls for buttermilk," she said. "I don't think we have buttermilk." "That's okay," I said. "I have a trick. A little bit of lemon juice in regular milk. Works every time." I could feel her eyes on me. It made my hands feel clumsy. I dropped the spatula. I felt silly. I felt like I was in her kitchen, using her things, and I was being judged. I pushed the feeling away. I was just being sensitive, I told myself. Later that day, Mark suggested we all go to the park. It was a beautiful day. We walked to the playground. I pushed Lily on the swings. I caught Tommy at the bottom of the slide. Over and over. He laughed every time. I was kneeling in the wood chips, brushing them off Tommy's pants, when I saw Jenny and Mark sitting on a bench. They were talking. Their heads were close together. They weren't looking at us. They were having a serious conversation. Mark's shoulders were tight. Jenny was doing most of the talking. She was pointing, gesturing with her hand. I couldn't hear the words, but I could feel the energy. It wasn't happy. It was tense. On the walk back, I asked Mark, "Is everything okay, honey?" He looked surprised.
"Yeah, Mom.
"Everything's fine. Just work stuff." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I've known that boy since he was born. I know his real smile. This wasn't it. Monday was a holiday. No school, no work for Mark. I thought we'd have another lovely day. But Mark announced he had to go into the office for a few hours. "Just to catch up," he said. He looked at Jenny. "Is that okay?" She just nodded. So it was just me, Jenny, and the kids. We played in the backyard for a while. I tried to talk to Jenny. I asked about her work. She gave short answers. I asked about her parents. She said they were fine, busy with their golf. The conversation felt like pulling teeth. Hard work. At lunchtime, I made sandwiches for the kids. I cut the crusts off for Tommy, the way he liked. Jenny made herself a salad. She ate it standing. At the counter, scrolling through her phone, I sat at the table with Lily, talking about her cat drawing. I felt invisible. That afternoon, something happened. Tommy was playing with a toy truck. He ran into the coffee table and bumped his head. Not hard, but he was scared. He started to cry. I was closest. I scooped him up instantly. I held him to my chest and rocked him, the way I'd rocked his daddy a million times. "Shoo, shoo," I whispered. "Grandma's got you. You're okay." He calmed down right away, his little sobs turning into hiccups. I felt his small hand grip my shirt. It was a perfect moment, a moment of pure connection. Then I looked up. Jenny was standing in the doorway to the living room. She was watching us. Her face was not soft. It was hard. She didn't say a word. She just turned and walked away. I felt a chill, a cold feeling that had nothing to do with the weather. I held Tommy a little tighter, but my heart was sinking. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. That night, I went to bed early. I lay in the dark, in their guest room, staring at the ceiling. The room was so quiet. I could hear my own heartbeat. I thought about Jenny's face when I was holding Tommy. It wasn't a look of gratitude. It wasn't a look of a mother who was happy her child was comforted. It was a look of, what? Possessiveness? Resentment. I pushed the thought away. I told myself I was imagining things. I was just a tired old lady, reading too much into a simple look. I decided to just enjoy my last day there. I'd leave on Wednesday, with good memories. I fell asleep trying to hold on to that hope. Tuesday morning started out normal. The house woke up to the sound of alarms and the rush of getting ready for school and work. I made coffee. Mark grabbed a piece of toast, kissed my cheek, and said, "See you tonight, Mom." He gave Jenny a quick kiss, too. Then he was out the door. Jenny got the kids ready. I helped Lily find her other shoe. I tied Tommy's little sneakers. There was a lot of noise, a lot of movement. Jenny was focused, efficient. She didn't look at me much. Then the door closed behind them. The school run. The house fell silent. It was just me and Jenny. I went to the kitchen. I decided to wash the breakfast dishes. It gave me something to do. I liked the warm water, the smell of the soap. I was thinking about maybe baking some cookies for the kids to have after school.
Annie's surprise.
I heard Jenny's footsteps on the hardwood floor. She came into the kitchen. She was holding her coffee mug. I kept my back to her, scrubbing a plate. The silence stretched out. It wasn't comfortable. It was thick, heavy, like the air before a big storm. I waited for her to say something. Maybe good morning. Maybe thank you for the nice weekend. But she didn't. She leaned against the counter. I could feel her gaze on my back. It was a physical weight. Then she spoke.
Her voice was so calm. So even.
It was the kind of voice you use to tell someone the time or that it's raining outside. She said, "Helen." I turned a little.
Not all the way.
Just so she could see my profile. "Yes, dear?" She took a sip of her coffee. Then she looked me right in the eye. "I think it's time for you to head home now. We need our space back." I went very still. My hands stopped moving in the water. For a second, I thought I hadn't heard her right. The words didn't make sense. I turned to face her fully. I needed to see her face. Was she joking? Was this a test? Her face was perfectly blank.
Polite.
A hostess telling a guest the party is over. My mouth felt dry. I tried to think of something to say. A million things flew through my head.
Why?
Did I do something wrong? What did Mark say? Can I just say goodbye to the children? But the words wouldn't come. They got stuck in my throat in a tight, painful ball. And in that moment of silence, I made a choice. A survival choice. I would not give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. I would not
Cry.
I would not beg. I would not let my son's wife see me fall apart. So I did the only thing I could do. I dried my hands on the little towel. I folded it neatly and put it on the counter. And I smiled. I pulled my lips back, and I smiled. "Of course, dear," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Far away. "I understand." Her expression didn't change. She just nodded. "Okay. Good. Mark has a late meeting, so I'll call you a car to take you to the bus station." She said it like she was arranging a delivery. Like I was a package. She walked out of the kitchen. I heard her on the phone in the living room, her voice crisp and professional, booking my ride. I stood there in the kitchen, alone. The sun was streaming through the big window. It lit up the beautiful, clean countertops. It showed every speck of dust. It showed me, an old woman in her son's house, being sent away. I went to the guest room. I unplugged my phone charger. I folded the scarf I was knitting for Lily. I hadn't even finished it. I put it in my bag. I folded my apron. The blue one with the flowers. It had tomato sauce on it from the spaghetti. I didn't wash it. I just folded it and put it in the bag. I made the bed. I smoothed out the sheets, fluffed the pillows, leaving the room as neat as I'd found it. It didn't take long to pack. I hadn't really unpacked. Maybe some part of me knew I wasn't truly welcome to stay. Maybe I'd been waiting for this all along. The car arrived in 20 minutes. Jenny opened the front door. She stood there, holding it. "The car is here, Helen." I walked to the door, pulling my little suitcase behind me. The wheels made a soft whirring sound on the wood floor. I stopped at the threshold. I turned to look at her. This woman my son loved. The mother of my grandchildren. I wanted to say something. To ask her, why? To tell her that I loved her family. That I wasn't a threat. That I was just a grandmother who wanted to be part of their lives. But we're still stuck. And her face was still so blank. So unreachable. So I just smiled again. That same polite smile. "Thank you for having me," I said. Like I was a guest at a dinner party. Not a mother being cast out. She nodded. "Safe travels." And I walked out the door. I walked down the neat path to the waiting car. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I got in the back seat. The driver, a young man with kind eyes, asked, "Bus station, ma'am?" I just nodded. I couldn't speak. As the car pulled away, I finally let the tears come. They ran silently down my cheeks. I didn't make a sound. I just stared out the window at the pretty houses sliding past, and I cried. The bus ride home was a blur. I don't remember much of it. I just remember staring at the seat in front of me, feeling numb. The scarf for Lily was in my bag, unfinished. The picture book for Tommy was untouched. The hope I'd carried with me was gone.
It was dead.
I got home late that night.
My little house felt different.
It felt colder, emptier than before. The silence wasn't just loud anymore. It was hostile. It was a reminder that I was alone. Completely alone. I sat in Frank's old armchair. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there in the dark. And I whispered to him.
"Frank," I said.
I don't know what I did wrong. The house, of course, didn't answer. The days after I came home were the hardest of my life. Harder than the days after Frank died. When Frank died, people came. They brought casseroles. They sat with me. They held my hand. The grief was terrible, but I was surrounded by love. This time, there was nothing. No one knew.
How could they?
The wound was invisible. It was just a few words spoken in a kitchen, but it had cut me to the bone. I didn't answer the phone when it rang. I let it go to voicemail. I was afraid it would be Mark. What would I say? What had Jenny told him? Did he know she had sent me away? Did he agree? A part of me was waiting for him to call, to ask why I left without saying goodbye, to say, "Mom, what happened?" But the phone stayed silent.
For 2 whole days it stayed silent.
I replayed that morning in my head, over and over. Had I done something? Had I overstayed some unspoken welcome? Was I too much? Too smothering? Did I hold Tommy for too long? Did I correct Lily's manners at the table? I picked apart every moment, every word, every look. I searched for my crime. On the 3rd day, the phone rang. I saw Mark's name on the screen. My heart stopped. Then it started pounding. I let it ring one more time, trying to steady my breathing. Then I picked it up. "Hello." My voice was shaky. "Mom." His voice sounded confused.
"Hey."
"I just got your message. You're home? I thought you were staying until today." He didn't know. The realization hit me like a wave. Jenny hadn't told him. She had sent me away, and she hadn't even told her own husband. I took a deep breath. I had to decide, right then in that moment, what to do. I could tell him the truth. I could tell him what his wife did. I could cause a fight. I could make him choose. I thought about the look on his face when I arrived. The tight hug. The way he said, "Thanks for coming, Mom." I thought about Lily and Tommy. I thought about their family. Their beautiful, modern, clean family. And I knew I couldn't be the one to break it. I couldn't be the mother who sowed seeds of discord. I couldn't be the reason my son was unhappy in his marriage.
So elite.
For the first time in my life, I lied to my son. "Oh, honey," I said, forcing a little lightness into my voice. "I'm sorry, I should have called. I wasn't feeling very well. Just a bit tired. I decided to come home early. I didn't want to be a bother." There was a pause. On the line.
"Oh.
Are you okay now?"
I'm fine, sweetheart."
"Just old age. You know how it is. Needed my own bed." I could hear the strain in my own voice. Could he hear it? "Well, okay," he said slowly. "I'm sorry you weren't feeling well. The kids were sad you were gone. Lily asked where you went." My heart cracked a little more. "Tell her grandma loves her. I'll call her soon." We said goodbye. I hung up the phone and I felt hollow. Empty. I had protected him. I had protected his family. But who was protecting me? Weeks passed. They turned into a month. Life went back to its quiet rhythm. I went to the grocery store on Tuesdays. I went to church on Sundays. I talked to the cashier, Mrs. Patterson, about the weather. I came home. I ate a small dinner alone. I watched TV until I fell asleep in my chair. The phone calls from Mark became shorter, less frequent. The distance between us grew. Not just the 3 hours by bus. A different kind of distance. A canyon. He would ask, "How are you?" I would say, "Fine." I would ask about the kids. He would tell me a quick story. Then the conversation would drift into silence. I felt him slipping away, and I felt myself becoming a ghost in my own life. Then one afternoon there was a knock on my door. It was a Thursday. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door, and my heart nearly stopped. It was Mark. He was standing on my porch. He looked terrible. His eyes were red. He had dark circles under them. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Mark," I whispered. "What's wrong? What happened?" He didn't say a word. He just stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me. He held me so tight, I could barely breathe. And then he started to cry. My big, strong son, crying on my shoulder like he was a little boy again. I held him. I just held him and rocked him, right there on the front porch. I didn't ask questions. I just let him cry. After a long time, we went inside. I sat him down at the kitchen table. I put the
Kettle on.
He sat there, staring at the table, his hands clasped in front of him. Finally, he spoke. His voice was rough.
Raw.
"She told me, Mom." I froze, my hand on the kettle. "Told you what, honey?" He looked up at me. His eyes were full of pain. "She told me she asked you to leave. That morning. She told me she kicked you out." I didn't say anything. I just sat down across from him. He shook his head. "She told me last night. We had a huge fight. About her mother coming to stay for a month." I said, "That's fine. My mom comes for a weekend sometimes." And she just snapped. She said, "Your mom isn't like my mom. Your mom comes and takes over. She thinks she knows everything." I couldn't even handle her being here for 3 days. And then she told me. She said she sent you home because she needed her space. And she said you just smiled and left. He put his head in his hands. "She made you leave. And you didn't even tell me. You lied to me. You said you were sick." I reached across the table and put my hand on his arm. "I didn't want to cause trouble, Mark." "Trouble." He looked up, tears on his cheeks. "Mom, you're my mother. You are not trouble. She had no right to do that to you." We sat there for a long time talking. He told me about the arguments, about the pressure Jenny was under from her job, about how she felt like she was losing herself, about how she saw me as a symbol of a life she didn't want, a life of meatloaf and hand-knitted scarves, a life she thought was small. "But it's not small, Mom," he said, his voice breaking. "It's real. You and Dad, what you had, that was real. That was love. I don't know what we have. I don't know if it's the same." I listened. I didn't judge Jenny. I didn't say, "I told you so." I just listened to my son pour out his heart. At the end, he said, "She wants to talk to you.
She's sorry.
She knows she was wrong. She's ashamed." I thought about it. I thought about that morning in her kitchen. The polite, hard face. The cold words. A part of me wanted to say no. A part of me wanted to hold on to my hurt, my righteous anger. It was mine. I had earned it. But then I looked at my son, his tired, sad face. And I thought about those 2 little children, Lily and Tommy, my grandchildren. What good would my anger do? Would it make Mark happy? Would it bring my family back together? Or would it just be another brick in the wall Jenny was building between us? I squeezed his hand. "Tell her it's okay, Mark. Tell her to call me when she's ready. There's nothing to be ashamed of. We're family. And family finds a way." Jenny called the next day. Her voice on the phone was different. It wasn't the crisp, professional voice. It was quiet, unsure. She asked if she could come to see me. Alone. I said yes. She arrived on a Saturday afternoon. She drove the 3 hours by herself. I watched her get out of the car. She looked smaller than I remembered. She wasn't wearing her usual sharp clothes. Just jeans and a simple sweater. She looked nervous. I opened the door before she could knock. We stood there for a moment, looking at each other. 2 women, mother and daughter-in-law, connected by the same man, the same children.
but separated by so much.
Then she spoke. Helen, thank you for seeing me. I just opened the door wider.
Come in, dear.
She came into my small living room. She looked around at the old furniture, the photos on the mantelpiece, the doilies my own mother had crocheted.
I saw her taking it in.
My small world. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd sat with Frank for 42 years. The same table where Mark did his homework. I poured her a cup of tea.
For a long time, she just stared at it.
Then she looked up. Her eyes were wet. I'm so sorry, Helen, she whispered.
I am so sorry.
The way I spoke to you, it was unforgivable. You came to my home, you helped with the kids, you cooked for us, you were nothing but kind. And I treated you like a stranger. An inconvenience. Tears started to roll down her cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. The truth is, I was jealous. I was surprised. Jealous? Of me? She nodded. Of how easily you connected with them. With Lily and Tommy. I work so hard. I'm at the office all day.
I'm tired. I'm stressed.
I come home, and I have to be a mom and a wife, and sometimes I have nothing left to give. And then you came, and you had all this patience, this calm. And the kids just gravitated to you. They were so happy. And I felt like I was being replaced. Like I was failing. She finally wiped her eyes. It wasn't about you.
It was about me.
About my own fears. My own insecurities. I felt like I wasn't enough. And instead of dealing with that, I took it out on you. I pushed you away. I listened to her. And for the first time I saw her. Not as the polished, successful daughter-in-law. But as a young woman struggling. Trying to do it all. Scared she was coming up short. I saw myself, 40 years ago, a young mother, tired and overwhelmed. The feelings were different, but the fear was the same. The fear of not being good enough. I reached across the table and took her hand. Her hand was cold. I held it between my two warm ones. Jenny, I said softly, I was never trying to replace you. I could never replace you. You are their mother. You are the one they need. I'm just the extra. The grandma. The one who spoils them and sends them home. My job is to love them. Your job is to raise them. They are two different things. There is room for both. She looked at our hands, held together on the table. A sob escaped her. I'm not perfect, I continued. I know I can be a lot.
Ifus.
I worry. I'm old-fashioned. I'm sure I drive you crazy.
But I love your family, Jenny.
I love my son. And I want to love you, too.
If
you'll let me. She looked up at me, her face wet with tears. I don't deserve that. It's not about deserving, dear, I said. It's about family. It's about grace. We all make mistakes. The important thing is learning from them. And forgiving. We sat there for a long time, holding hands and crying. Two women, finally being honest with each other. Finally seeing each other. She stayed for hours. We talked about everything. About her job, her stress. About my loneliness since Frank died. About Mark and how much we both loved him. About Lily's drawings and Tommy's love for trucks. We talked like friends, like family. Before she left, she hugged me. A real hug. A tight hug. Thank you, Helen, she whispered, for forgiving me. Call me Mom, I said, if you want to. She pulled back and smiled. A real smile. Okay, Mom. My life is different now. Not perfect, but different. Jenny calls me every week. Sometimes just to chat. Sometimes to ask for a recipe. She sends me pictures of the kids. I've been back to visit them. And this time when I visit, it's different. Jenny and I cook together in the kitchen. We make a mess and we laugh about it. I watch the kids while she takes a bath or goes for a walk just to have some quiet time. I'm not a threat anymore. I'm a helper. A partner. Mark is happier. I can see it in his eyes. The tension is gone from his shoulders. He calls me just to say, "Hi, Mom. Just thinking of you and me." I'm not so lonely anymore. My house is still quiet, but it doesn't feel so empty. The phone rings. The silence has a friend now, and that friend is hope. I learned something through all of this. A lesson I wish I'd learned sooner. We hold on so tight to the people we love. We're so afraid of losing them. But sometimes, the tighter you hold, the more they slip away. You have to learn to hold them loosely. To trust that the love is strong enough to survive the distance, the misunderstandings, the hard words. And you have to learn to forgive.